Hey, welcome back, Summer Scholars. Woo! Okay, so we are going to talk about simplifying expressions. This is pretty much something that you've done many times before, hopefully. This is not new. But let's zoom in. Okay, so in case you forgot, we are going to use GEMDAS. It's not PEMDAS anymore, it's GEMDAS. The first one is grouping. Means parentheses. Fractions are also included. Square roots, radicals, I should say. Absolute value, anything like that. In this first problem, we don't have that. But then comes exponents, which we do have right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate the exponent, which is right here. And we're going to just look at it and say, well, this is minus 4 squared, so 4 squared is 4 times 4, that's 16. So I like to show all the steps. If you have me as a teacher next year, and if you have pretty much any algebra teacher next year, they're going to say, show your work. So don't fight us on this, just actually show your work. So I'm going to rewrite this, even though I could probably do a lot of this in my head, and some of you probably could as well. I'm not going to be cheap here. I'm going to actually just rewrite this entire problem. But now instead of minus 4 squared, this is going to be minus 16. So the exponents are taken care of there. From here, it is multiplication and division from whatever comes from left to right. And the same thing is true of addition and subtraction. It isn't always multiplication first, and it isn't always addition first. It's multiplication or division, whatever comes first, and addition or subtraction, whatever comes first from left to right. This is going to be the first stumbling block this year for those that are a little bit careless with this. So as I'm looking at this problem, there's division and multiplication, but because division comes first, I am going to take care of 12 divided by 3. So that's 4, and I'm going to rewrite all the work. And now we're just left with multiplication and subtraction. So 4 times 5 is 20. So 20 minus 16, that equals 4. And that's how to do it. Obviously, when you get to algebra, you're going to have a graphing calculator that you're able to kind of type this in. But even then, you shouldn't rely on that. This is much more doable if you just do old-fashioned math here. Okay, so here's another problem that looks a little crazy. Now, I know you know what parentheses look like. Parentheses look like this. But brackets kind of are straighter, and they have these little feet, or hands if you like. I just made that up. We don't actually say that in math, but, you know, whatever. Alright, so now that we're going to do GEMDAS all over again, according to GEMDAS, the first thing is G for grouping. Now, I have two groupings here. I have the brackets and I have the parentheses. The way this works is you look for the largest group. Right now the largest group is these brackets. And then once you're in here, you have to do GEMDAS all over again. This is like a brand new problem. I'm going to ignore this. I'm just going to cover that up. This doesn't matter anymore because we'll deal with that later. And I'll actually just, even though this is an exponent, I'm going to deal with this at the very end because I want to do one thing at a time. Okay, so now that we're in here, we have to go through GEMDAS all over again. Inside of these brackets, I see more grouping terms, these parentheses. So according to the rules, to get the right answer, you need to do that first. So what this is going to be is negative 28 times, now we have to do the 3 minus 5 here, that's negative 2. So it's going to be times negative 2. I don't like to use the dot. I think the dot is dumb, but I'm going to use it here, and I'm still going to put the negative 2 in parentheses because I don't want you to think it's a subtraction sign. Now, plus a negative 3 to the 4th power, which would be negative 3 to the 4th power. So this is going to be minus 81. Close those brackets, and I'll even write this part here now. Technically you can simplify that now, but I don't want to give you any negative role modeling bad habits. So here's the thing. One of the key questions right here is, in one of the earlier videos I mentioned that if you have a number to an exponent, it does matter if there is a parentheses around this thing. If I were to have put parentheses around the -3, I'd get a totally different answer. But I'm going to play it how it is. Alright, so this is plus and a negative. Combined they make a subtraction, and I'm just evaluating this as 3 to the 4th, which is 81. It's 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. That's what that is. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And that negative sign is just going to make whatever this is, which happens to be 81, just negative. That's it. We're still inside these brackets now, and I have to do multiplication. This is -28 times -2. That's going to be a positive 56 minus 81. I'll bring this down. And like I said, because this is separate, it's on its own, you could technically evaluate this right now. I am just going to wait. I'm going to take my work to the right so that I don't squish it. 56 minus 81 would be negative. Wow, that was embarrassing. Negative 25. A little rusty here, folks. So negative 25. I don't need these brackets anymore because we've simplified the entire expression that was in here. So this is just negative 25 divided by, now I can evaluate this. Negative 5 squared is negative 5 times negative 5. That's just positive 25. So now we can finally do the last piece. Negative 25 divided by 25 is just negative 1. And that's our answer there. Number 3 has a fraction. Now, fractions are considered grouping terms. But we already have grouping terms here. Some people, normally I like to go in the order of GEMDAS, but in order to make my life a little bit simpler here, I already know that this is just 2. So I'm just going to write it down there, and I'll deal with it later. This is my denominator. This is the problem, though. I'm going to show you this, and some people take this and they do too much with it. Since I already simplified the bottom, I'm not even going to worry about it. What I'm going to do is just focus on the top. But you need to remember that there is a 2, because some people like to just walk away from the problem without actually bringing this back. But this is going to save it for later. I'll just star that. Okay, so now we're going to take care of these parentheses first. 3 plus 4 is 7. So this is going to be 8 times 7 minus 2 times 8. Okay, and then if you notice, I don't have the brackets anymore. I don't really need the brackets. Actually don't matter here. It's the parentheses that matter. These brackets are actually they don't need to be there. So 8 times 7 is 56 minus 2 times 8 is 16. Right, I took care of both of these at the same time. And then I'm going to subtract 56 minus 16 is going to be 40. Now this is where you have to remember that we have this 2, so this 2 needs to come back. Right? Some people will stop at 40 and get it wrong. It's 40 over 2, which is 40 divided by 2, which is 20. Done. Number 4 is ugly. It's very ugly, but it's doable, so let's do it. One thing I want to point out is that outside of these brackets we have an exponent, often overlooked a lot. I like to make them darker when I do these problems so I don't forget. But the first thing that's going to take place here in terms of my simplification process is going to be the parentheses here. Now there's a little exponent outside them as well. That's an exponent. I cannot mess with that until I take care of this inside part. So 6.4 plus 5.1 is going to be 11.5. I'm going to bring those parentheses back, throw that exponent out there, and I'm going to write this problem. Basically everything else will get rewritten and I do need to take care of that brackets there as well, those brackets as well. Write the exponent. Okay, so the next thing that's going to happen is 11.5 to the power of 2. Matter of fact, since I know that's going to be what I focus on next, I'm actually going to write the problem over again. Obviously, I'm not going to rewrite the 11.5 to the power of 2 because we're going to evaluate that right now. So let's do that. 11.5 to the power of 2 is 132.25. And since you've basically evaluated it, you don't need the parentheses anymore because the parentheses was just there to force us to evaluate this exponent. Plus 9 over 8. Exponent on the outside. Don't lose your little pieces of the puzzle as you go. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract. So 131.625 minus 132.25 is negative 0.625 plus 9 over 8. The whole quantity will be squared. Plus, I'm going to use my calculator here. You are allowed to use one at home. I recommend that. So this is going to be 0.5 to the power of 2. This whole inside became 0.5. And then 0.5 to the power of 2 is really just going to be 0.25 or 1/4, and you're done. And then this last problem down here, let me just get this angled better. Okay, so fractions are actually pretty easy. I know this looks a little crazy looking, but what I'm going to do is I am going to evaluate these exponents first. Actually, that's what has to happen anyway. Right, so here we go. We're going to evaluate this exponent. 1 over 4 is still going to be 1 over 4. 5 over 2 to the third. 2 to the third is 2 times 2 times 2. And that's 8. So really what this is, if you want to think of it as in disguise, so to speak, is 5 over 8 plus, and this is a little tricky part. I'm actually going to do this little side math here. Negative 3 over 2, quantity is what I'll say with the parentheses there, cubed is really negative 3 over 2 times negative 3 over 2 times negative 3 over 2. Okay, and so we're just going to multiply. Just get this out of the way. We're just going to multiply. You know, you've done this before. I took something that looks super algebra-like and I just made it look more manageable. Alright, so let's just take care of the sign first. A negative times a negative would be positive, and then a positive times a negative would make it negative. So I already know this whole thing will be negative. Okay, so now that I know that, I could just worry about the numbers. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So this is really a negative 27 over 8. So that is going to go right here. Because I already wrote a plus, just to make myself not confused, I'm just going to put a parentheses there and write negative 27 over 8. Okay, so next will be division. But I'm going to actually clean this up a bit. 1/4 divided by 5 over 8 minus 27 over 8. Alright, so a lot of people don't remember how to divide fractions, so I'm going to do it for you. Let's see if you remember. So when you divide fractions, what you do is you keep that first one the same, you change this to multiplication, and then you flip this fraction. And so this will be 8 over 20. Okay, and we'll bring down this minus 27 over 8. Now from here, you can do a common denominator, which, you know what, I'm going to do the common denominator. why not? Let's just do that. The common denominator here between these two would be 40. Okay, so this will be, to get to 40, I'll multiply both of these by 2. This will be 16 over 40 minus. Now to get this denominator to 40, I'll multiply the top and bottom by 5. And this will be 135 over 40. And then your final answer will be, let's see, 16 minus 135 is negative 119 over 40. If you went the decimal route, right, and if you wanted to go the decimal route, which works here because your denominators are even, you should get the same exact answer as me, which will be, I'm just doing it right now, the same thing. Well, actually, the calculator doesn't turn that into a decimal. If you did negative 119 divided by 40, you get 4. Negative 2.975. This is fine as an answer. This is better as an answer because this is something that you're going to have to get used to anyway moving forward. Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully I helped you out. If not, find me room 158 next year when I see you. Have a great summer.